Hi there, I'm Pam Ostrowski, the One in Service leader, champion, and your host today. And I'm also the CEO of Service Organization Strategies. I work with vendors and channel partners that you all know, such as HP, Cisco, Polycom, Avnet, Extreme Networks, in helping them develop services and marketing tools and sales training. But most importantly, I develop those for you, the solutions providers. And so that's a really important aspect of One in Service, is that we're really trying to focus on IT marketing as a service within One in Service. A couple of notes about today's session. Please don't share confidential information because this is being recorded. Keep your input to around a minute or so if you can, just to be sensitive to the fact that others might want to speak up. And just to refresh your memory, is that the purpose of this Collabinar series is to really help you, the solutions provider, define, implement, and market new services to drive growth and revenue. So if you know others who could benefit from these types of conversations and advice, please forward the invitation that you received from me and ask them to join our LinkedIn and Twitter conversations. Now, just as a reminder, this is a 30-minute session, so we'll have 15 minutes of networking and conversation afterwards, so please feel free to join us. Also, within the GoToMeeting, there's a chat button, little bubble. You can click on that, and you can either send the message to everyone or you can send a message to me privately. And also, if you have a PowerPoint or a website or something you would like to share on your screen, I can hand over the screen to you and you can show it to the group. So today, you're going to walk away with at least 5 ways to make your company more findable. And we'll talk about what that means in a minute, so that you can achieve your 2016 revenue goals. Now, today, my guest is George Malore, founder and CEO of Cloud Readiness. George created VAR Compliance, now Netformix channel expert, and he's led and taken ownership positions in several successful IT solutions provider companies. So let's just say George is an expert. He works daily with IT solutions providers just like you, helping them achieve their revenue goals. Welcome, George. How are you today?
Good morning. Great to be here, Pam. How are you?
I am great, thanks. And thank you so much for coming today and participating. I appreciate it. So, it's time to sharpen the saw. And, you know, for those people who may not know that analogy, the story is that there's a lumberjack and there's a competition and he's doing outstanding. He's competing against another lumberjack, but he continues to beat the competition but he never stops to sharpen his saw. He just keeps knocking down trees. Well, at the beginning, he's more productive and successful than anyone else, but because he doesn't stop and sharpen his saw, he quickly falls behind. My phrase for this is, what got you here won't get you there. And what that means is that you have to change your market and the way that you market your business if you're going to achieve your 2016 goals, and for some of you, just to stay in business. It's that serious. So George, over the past 20 years, I've sat in well over 100 partner advisory council meetings. It's probably approaching more like 200. And I listen to IT solutions providers complaining to vendors that they're not getting enough leads. Now, there's a ton of social media tools, a ton of marketing tools, CRM tools, everything you could possibly imagine is out there to reach out to customers and grab them and communicate with them and find out what their needs are and communicate with them about what types of ways that you as an IT solutions provider can help them. But I'm still hearing, oh, we don't have enough leads. We need more leads. Can you share with the group, you know, what are you hearing and why do you think we're still hearing this?
Well, certainly, Pam, I do hear that quite a bit still even today. I think what I'm doing with most of the clients that I interact with is really, I believe I've got them convinced that they need to create their own marketing entity and engine and really look to drive their own leads, leveraging any vendor program they can to either fund or offset some of the costs, but literally take the ownership of doing their own business development, and then literally provide the visibility back to their vendor to show them the results they're getting, with the long-term objective to A, grow their own business, and B, to get the vendor interested in at least providing some of the funds to create that really great business development engine, and not rely on the vendor themselves to bring those leads to the table, because quite frankly, vendors are not focused on doing that. They're focused on enablement, not in dropping leads on their partners anymore.
Right. And, the interesting thing about that is that I don't believe they ever were that interested. There's a sense that if you're an IT solutions provider, you're running your own company, and a company has marketing, it has sales, it has operations, it has finance, it has, potentially, it has a service organization typically. And so there's an expectation by most vendors that I work with that, you have to run your own business. So why do you think there's a resistance there? Has the vendor created this dependency?
Well, I think over time, and certainly for a lot of folks that have been in the business for some time, that there was a point in time where, regardless if it was part of the vendor strategy or not, value-added resellers and solution providers became fulfillment sources. And quite frankly, the good news at the time was that the leads went to the VAR because they were there and did a nice job delivering. And I think it became, like anything, a de facto standard that nobody intended to have happen, and people became accustomed to it. And many, unfortunately, haven't broken away from that approach. But I believe these days they need to, and if they don't, that they cannot survive on anything that would come direct from the vendor anymore in the way of leads or deals.
Right, one a quarter is probably not going to do it. So, the question that I'd like to ask the group is, what's your findability factor? So when we talk about being findable, you might be sitting there going, that's not even a word, Pam. What it means is that it's about your prospects looking for a business solution. And if you saw one of the invitations I sent is, quick, can you pass this test? If you did a search for a particular technology solution that your company provides and you type it in, does your company show up on the first page? Are you findable? Because, and everybody's heard the statistic, and the percentages vary, but somewhere between 60%, customers get through somewhere between 60% and 75% of the buying cycle just online, figuring out who they want to narrow down and who they want to have conversations with. So if that's the case and you're not findable, you're not on that short list. So George, who is it that's doing the finding these days? Because a lot of times I've heard people say, oh, well, it's not just, it's the IT guys and they know who to go to. So within the prospect, who are you seeing doing these searches and looking for solutions, online or through Twitter or LinkedIn?
Most of what we're seeing in the client base that I'm dealing with is mostly outside of IT, and I think that's probably a trend that many of the folks on the phone are now seeing. And I'm sure in many of the company objectives for 2015 going into 2016 is that we the solution provider want to break outside of IT and start to create linkages to many of the other functions within a company. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things in the findability factor that you have to take into account, which is talking IT speak to business owners and business leaders will get you nowhere. And the fact is that today most of the spend on IT will come from outside of the IT organization, and those are the people that I believe are out there searching for people like our constituents here on the phone. And the only problem is they're unable to find you because you don't look and smell like what they're looking for, because you look like an IT service provider who speaks IT.
And I have some great examples of that, as you know. So we'll get to that right now then. So now moving on to actually being found. I want to ask everybody on the line, do you know and actively market your top 3 solutions offerings? Not your company, not the technology itself, not the products themselves, but top 3 solutions. What somebody would Google if they were looking for what you're offering. And then a quick test would be, how quickly does your company appear when you do searches for that kind of information? What are you doing? What are you owning as part of your company? What are you owning as responsibility for being findable? So George, what are a couple of ideas you shared with your clients on how to become more findable?
Well, a lot of the work we do is first and foremost, taking a look at the website and really, looking at the fact, is it too laden with IT terminology and things that people outside of the IT organization wouldn't understand? And one of the biggest bugaboos we always find almost day in, day out with a lot of our clients is that they'll bring to market that they're a managed service provider. And I can almost guarantee that any CMO, CEO, CFO is never ever searching for a managed service provider. They're looking for somebody who can help lower IT costs and provide greater value at a whole different cost point because they're frustrated with IT. And not one of them will search for a managed service provider. They're searching for the solution, not the moniker.
Right, right. And so trying to see if we have, I'm text chatting with some of the people on the line and wanted to see if anybody had any input on what they're doing to be more findable. So what do you hear from your clients about how much time, money, and effort they put into becoming more findable? Do they have a marketing budget? Do they have a resource that's dedicated to marketing? Do they just outsource the whole thing? What are you seeing with your client base, George?
Most of these folks definitely allocate funds for marketing, but I would say that most of what I've found as I look at their results and why they are not findable is in most cases they really have not invested the money in the right places, whether that be social, whether that be inbound marketing, or whether that be literally, for lack of a better word, talking in pedestrian speak so those folks out there searching for them can actually find them. And really probably half of the engagements I do are really looking at what they have today and working then to get it to a point where anyone searching for them can actually find them. So the way I term it with a lot of my customers are, hey, it's great you have a billboard, too bad you put it in the desert. And, time after time, that's what happens.
Yes.
And we try and correct that by literally reconstructing, if you will, their world as it comes to a website and their social messaging to be able to help them uncover those folks who are searching for them but just do not speak in IT terminology.
Perfect. Well, let me switch over to some examples of this. So these are 3, I just screen captured 3 websites. And the top one, the middle one, and the bottom one, would you say there's any differentiation? Take a look at these guys on the screen. Would you see any differentiation between these 3? Basically it's solutions, resources, partners, about us, services, solutions, our customers, technology, compliance, security, webinars. So what we're doing with our websites, just at the very top, and this is as exciting as it gets at the top. Now, some might argue, oh, well, the real content is in the middle and in the bottom part, but there's nothing exciting or different here. And so immediately you're encouraging the reader to ignore any information you put up there. In reality, it doesn't matter what you put up there. This is just, in theory, a way to get to the menu offerings. And so if everybody looks alike, and that's what I hear from most IT solutions providers is, we don't have a differentiator, Pam. We all sell Cisco and we all sell Extreme Networks, and it's just a matter of where we are in our geography and the flip of a coin whether or not we get the business. Well, that I don't believe is true. I think that if you're offering value within your website and that your marketing messages are targeted from a solutions perspective, not a vendor perspective, not a product perspective, and certainly not in IT speak, you can effectively attract new leads. I mean, that's how you stay in business, right? And meet your revenue numbers. So George, how many of the IT solutions providers that you work with would you say have even a strong social media presence, which is 140 characters or so in reality? I mean, we're not talking about putting a lot of effort into something. And do they offer insights? Do they link back to meaningful blogs and articles, or not? What are you seeing?
Very limited in their social presence and sort of that valuable content that will keep people coming back. I think that's a percent as a percentage. It affects 100% of the clients I deal with when I start interacting with them. And at the end of the day, as you said, all the sites look the same. All the messaging is essentially the same. And where they get a chance to differentiate themselves is through blogs and articles and content that should be refreshed and refreshed often, where they can start to put the their value proposition on what they do and why they're important in the marketplace, but very seldom do. And one of the biggest hurdles that I have to overcome with these folks is to say, listen, everybody on staff, your top 15, 20, 30% of your people who are very talented people need to start writing blogs. If you have 10 people and each person writes a blog a month, you can bring up a pretty good content library that's valuable, and then start to link out to those social networks and basically reuse this content and get it out there wider and broader, and start to have something that's distinct and provides value and provides something that people will keep coming back to you to look for, because you become that thought leader that they are looking for.
So I've heard some pushback on this whole mentality behind social media and doing blogs per se, because the thought is, hey, we put information out there and nothing's happened. And so I did a little investigation on my own of some of the people who have said that, and a lot of them are just putting out white papers. They're spending a lot of money, thousands of dollars for white papers and content, without an understanding of what they're supposed to do with that. So it's not gated. And by gated, for those folks who don't do marketing speak, it means that when you would provide a synopsis of what's in the white paper, and that synopsis needs to be compelling. You're going to walk away with 5 different ways to evaluate whether you are cloud ready, as an example, and maybe have some thought leadership, a paragraph on thought leadership. So you're looking at about 100 words. And then they have to fill out just their first name, their last name, their company name, and their email. Nothing more. No more than 4 fields in order to get the white paper. But I see websites with a bunch of information, which is valuable, but it's just being given away. I can download any white paper off of most IT solutions providers' websites and not have to provide any information. Well, guys, those are your prospects. Those are the people who are interested in that topic. If you don't capture them, then there's no way for you to communicate with them and do follow-up and say, hey, I saw that you downloaded my white paper on security services in the financial market, and I was wondering if you'd like to have a 30 minutes of consultative conversation about what maybe your top business challenge is. Or, you could have a variety of ways of reaching out to that customer. It doesn't have to be inundating their email box. But the fact that we don't capture that information is a huge faux pas. It is missing the boat entirely. So instead, you're kind of just throwing money out the window. With blogs are the voice of who your company is. It's not just about, let me tell you what I know. It's about what you think of what technology, a particular technology or a particular product, how that impacts a particular market. It's typically an opinion-based piece that's the voice of your company. And that is how you differentiate, because every company has a different voice. So for those people who are on the line or are listening to the recording, I am happy to spend an hour with you having this conversation about 3 things that you could do to improve your marketing and your company's findability today, not like 6 months from now, but things that you could do today that would switch over and make you more findable. So if you're interested in taking advantage of that offer, send me an email at pam@soscallforhelp.com, and I'm happy to do that. But this is critical, guys. This is so important to your business and your ability to continue running your business. So like George and I kind of talked about some examples. So I want to move on to some examples of what we call IT speak. When you look at this screen, what do you see? George, what do you see?
To tell you the truth, Pam, when I look, I go brain dead. I don't even want to keep reading.
Exactly. Welcome to being the prospect. I mean, first of all, the fact that the number one rule is it's got to be readable. So that means, and here's a tip for everybody, no paragraph should be longer than 3.5 lines. Lines, not sentences, lines. Because if you read one of these sentences, the top one about 5:9, halfway down a sentence starts. It doesn't finish till the end of the block that I copied. It's a huge sentence. And so, and then the other thing is that they make it about the company. This is the home page. These are 3 examples of home page descriptors. So is what you have on your home page meaningful to prospects? I did a huge search, and sadly, I would say not anymore. It used to be, if you started your business in the 90s and you started your website by 2000, you probably haven't changed it since then. And this is the type of thing that's in there. So, let's take our IT hats off for a second. Let's read the Cipher Cloud one. Cipher Cloud, the leader in cloud information protection, enables organizations to accelerate their adoption of cloud applications while ensuring visibility and control of their data. Cipher Cloud delivers data privacy, regulatory compliance, and data residency in the cloud through an open platform that provides comprehensive data discovery, protection, search strong encryption, tokenization, data loss prevention, key management, and malware detection, and activity and anomaly monitoring services. This is absolutely amazing. This is not about the customer at all. This isn't about a business solution. This is what we push as information out to you. And back to your point, George, if you're talking to a business unit manager, they're like, hey, I don't know if this is what I need, but I certainly don't want to read more of this. Would you agree?
Totally agree. This is definitely something that only the most die-hard IT savant could deal with, but certainly no business person would probably make it past 14 words.
Yeah, totally agree. So let's take a look at what it should say. So at the top, we've got what it did say. And then this is one option. Now notice the font size is larger. One of the other tips is that most of us, well, 70% of the population owns a smartphone. And more of our accessibility, how we read information, is through a device. And it's usually our smartphone. So and it might be, it might be an iPad, it might be, some other type of larger platform or a larger footprint device. But usually, if you look at the iPhone 6 and the Samsung Note 4 or Note 5, you look at the size of them, and they're pretty reasonably, they're a small laptop in my opinion. So, but that being said, when messages come in or when somebody's looking at your website, if your font size isn't big enough, then we have to, do that little pinch finger thing expansion in order to read, and that totally messes up your readability. So start off with fewer words and larger font. What is the key message of Cipher Cloud in this huge paragraph? The question to the prospect is, does your business need to adopt cloud applications faster? Are you concerned about data privacy and control? Cipher Cloud has the answers and the expertise to help you achieve your goals faster. Same thing, different language. right? Because you're not trying to push, here's all of our expertise in one paragraph. And that is the number one error of every IT website I've seen, including vendors. So, I'm not pointing fingers at IT solutions providers, but content is changing. If you go and do a Google search for content marketing right now, there are so many books and so many webinars and conferences about how do we communicate. And now we're also talking cross-generationally, because those of us in the baby boomer generation speak entirely differently than Gen Y or Gen X and how they access information. And so, we have to change how we speak. We have to have easily consumable messages. So, George, do you have any examples where you've seen strong differentiation in this particular space?
Yeah, definitely have, especially in the sense of those folks who really keep, as you've done here, keep the messaging simple, succinct, and make it about the customer. So there are many examples. There's a great company, a database services company, Entirety, that has a great website, and it's great because it's clean, it's simple, and it talks to the customer need in the way anybody from any business function could understand.
Yeah, it's just amazing how difficult we make it. And I think, have you seen a lot of change, say, over the past 5 years in how this messaging needs to change? And then have you actually seen that change?
Yeah, I think many folks are starting to really understand that at the end of the day, they need to make a change in how they message, that the world has gone from an outbound marketing world to an inbound marketing world, and that at the end of the day, their website is essentially their front door. And your front door can either be friendly, warming, and welcoming and provide me some value, or it doesn't. And sort of as you depicted here with CipherCloud, when it's busy, noisy, and looks like chaos, it will turn most people off, and most people won't bother knocking on the front door, so to speak.
And an interesting word that was missing from your descriptors, because I totally agree with you, but it occurred to me, entertaining. So we actually have someone on the line. I'm going to disclose Promise about the PSA software. We had Jim Barnett as a guest last month, and you look at their website, and it's fun to read. Quick information, easy to read. You can scroll down and you're like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm going to click on that. Oh, that looks interesting. I'll click on that. And it's entertaining. It's not just here's a bunch of information in one big paragraph. And ultimately, that is how we are going to have to evolve our websites. So if you haven't invested in your website yet, now is the time, because you're going to be in trouble otherwise. So let's talk about 5, because I promised you 5 out of at least 50, and I could probably come up with 150 ways your company can become more findable. First, I want you to search for top 3 solutions you offer. Do you show up? That's a really important thing. Now, if you do show up, then we have to ask the next question, which is, when you click on your link, does your website look and feel stand out from your competitors? So now you've got this list of findings, right, organic search results from Google. Start clicking through and seeing, do you look like everybody else? Like the 3 websites I showed with the headers, everybody's headers are the same: products, services, about us, customers. And so there's nothing dynamic about that. Change the words. Come on, there's millions of words that we have access to. Let's change it up a little bit. Then, do you provide helpful insights and tools on your site? And then gate them to get lead information so that you know who's interested in what. So you can segment your marketing, whether it's emails or phone calls, to make it most relevant to that customer. I see that you're looking for digital security in the financial market. Here's an article that we thought you might benefit from. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an article from you guys. You don't have to write everything. Link back to something that's in the Huffington Post. You can do that, and that way you can differentiate between the financial market and, say, healthcare. right? You shouldn't be sending out generic solutions, emails, and marketing to a broad market. Healthcare and finance have different concerns. So your information needs to be funneled differently. It needs to have a pathway, much like a flow chart. So if you're not providing helpful insights, and again, guys, you don't think that this has to be a 9-page white paper either. You could just do 150, 200 words and say, this is what we've discovered. We just went through this with a customer and this is what we discovered. Is this happening to your world too? Let's talk, right? That's it. Don't make it more complicated than it is, but please do it. Does your messaging and tone truly differentiate your approach? Or, like the examples that we just discussed, is it all the same tech speak? It's just, potentially, it's like, well, that's what the vendors use. Well, that's not who you are. So keep it simple, and look at the example that I provided, but hone in on the customer's messaging. And then finally, are you part of the IT conversations that are going on in Twitter and LinkedIn? And George, you'd mentioned that you'd seen Facebook, and can you kind of lend some Facebook engagement? Why would IT people be using Facebook?
Well, what we've seen is certainly a lot of the decision makers in businesses these days are younger. A lot of those folks grew up with Facebook, and quite frankly, they're the ones that now are potentially just getting into LinkedIn at some level, but have always lived in Facebook. So many of my customers, and I don't know if they're Gen X, Y, or Z, but they're certainly a lot younger than I am. And first and foremost, they almost dictate to me that they want a dialogue with me on Facebook. And I see that more and more and more as folks ascend, the next group of leaders today, all grew up in Facebook, and Facebook is second nature. So to most of those people, Facebook is really their emanation point of a social dialogue versus LinkedIn, where myself, and I believe you, Pam, as well, LinkedIn is my number one tool and the number one way I communicate with a lot of folks I don't know through blogs or other means, where a CEO of a company I'm dealing with now, who is in their late 20s, essentially every single dialogue I do with this person outside of email comes through Facebook, and most of his social marketing plan this year centers around Facebook, Twitter, and then LinkedIn.
It's amazing. So whether I just felt a bunch of baby boomers cringe. Can't we just pick up the phone? No, people don't answer their phones anymore. So because of that discussion, and that is a long discussion, our next session will be about a deep dive about using social media and getting more prospects and leads, and what social media can actually do for you, and which of those three players, because frankly, I would not have picked Facebook. I would have picked LinkedIn through messaging and that type of, having a premier membership, and Twitter for pushing information out. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to talk about our insecurities about using social media. Most IT people do not, by the way. Vendors do, and a few large IT solutions providers do. But the bottom line is that you've got to have at least two of the three. Some people are talking about, having a YouTube presence, and Google likes that. But ultimately we have to do something. So that's going to be our next session on Wednesday, January 6th. So George, we have run out of time. This was a load of fun. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I want to thank you for your time and your perspective. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Just one closing comment, and I think you've covered it all very well. And I just think, as you're thinking through what your strategy is with marketing and social impact, just make it clear, make it concise, and make it so a sixth grader can understand it. And if you keep to that messaging and you look to drive people, there's nothing worse than throwing a party and nobody attending. So make sure that once you do make yourself findable, that it's worth being found.
Exactly. Great advice. I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you said that. So folks on the line and listening to the recording, join us on Wednesday, January 6th. For our next discussion. Remember that you can always go to oneinservice.com and check out other collabinars and podcasts that we've done and share them with your colleagues. This is valuable information that's all part of making sure that IT solutions providers can differentiate themselves in the marketplace around services in particular. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you at next month's Collabinar. Take care, and thanks again, George.
Thank you.